let's start with the case interview. So we'll be analyzing a Harley Davidson profitability based business scenario. So how we will be going through it. So Ashwin will pose as the interviewer. Ashwin will pose as the interviewer, and then I'll pose as a student, and then Ashwin will be asking question as an interviewer, and I'll be analyzing the answers. I will be giving the answer, and then we'll be explaining you the analysis based on my answers, and how they are good and how they are good or how they are bad, and based on that we'll be coming to a conclusion. So let's start. Ashwin, please.
Right. So
and just a second, please. From this point onward, this may take a while. Around 20 to 30 minutes, we'll be going through a complete case solution, and this is a very comprehensive solution and case study. So please listen carefully, and at the end, you will get a good idea of how case interview works.
So essentially, we'll be simulating an entire live case here, and so any questions, if there are any questions, you can ask them at the end. Right. So should we show this to the audience also, Karthik, this one, the slides, or should we hide them for now? We can show it, I guess.
Yeah,
they'll be able to follow better.
Yes, because it's just a practice case. We can show this.
Right. So let's start. Hello, Karthik. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for asking.
I'm also good. So yeah, are you ready? Let's start with the case.
Yeah, sure, please.
Right. So our client is Harley Davidson Motor Company. Its stocks fell from $45 a share to $49 a share on the news of declining profits. Can you help us identify what is going on and methods in which we can turn this around?
Okay, so our client is Harley Davidson, and stock fell from 54 to 49. So the share is in declining profit. So we need to figure out what's going on. So are there any other objectives I should be aware of?
None, but only this. I mean, particularly maintaining the share that was there beforehand also.
Okay, so about the profit, and I should be maintaining the share simultaneously.
Yes.
So okay, so here comes a question, Janmeet. So here the primary objective which the interviewer was asking was whether the stock price of our company is falling, and we have fallen around $6, around $5. So what can we do about it? And that's what they're asking as an interviewer. And after clarifying the questions, that's according to the IVK system, we are supposed to clarify the question at the start. After clarifying the question, I asked the interviewer whether is there any other objective I should be aware of. So he said yes, maintaining the market share. So you have to keep in mind while you are improving the profits, or bringing out strategies based on other parameters, you should keep in mind that you have to maintain the market share. So the slides are self-readable and you can read them. The student was right to summarize the case and also right to verify the objective, and whether is there any other objective she should be concerned with without asking. She never would have known that maintaining market share was the issue, and the interviewer would have brought this point on at the later stage. So while you were making strategies, so that would have confused you. So that's why clarifying objective at the initial is a very important part. Moving on. Now, next thing, Ashwin, please.
Right. So, maintaining market share. Yes, Karthik. Over to you.
Okay. So I have a clarifying question. What were the trend of Harley's profit over the last 3 years?
Okay. So last 3 years, so 3 years ago the profits were up 8%. The next year they were flat, and this year, according to the trends that we are seeing and according to the predictions, they will be down by 5%. They will be down 5%.
All right. So I understood this completely. And what constitutes success to you? Means what is the prime objective you want, and can I know some parameters?
Right. So just like we saw in the first year, I mean 3 years back, so an 8% increase every year would be great. So just like we saw 3 years back, we also expect the same to continue, and that would be success for us.
Okay, for the next 5 years, right? So 8% increase for the next 5 years. so the time span we'll be looking is 5 years and 8% speed. So here what we did is we have to ask clarifying question after knowing the objective. And the first question we should begin with is what are the profits for the last 3 years? So you can know the trend, and as you can see the profits have been declining, and the 8% and a year ago they were flat and now they're down by 10%. Now after this you might want to ask what is it that constitutes success to the client. So as you can see that 8% increase for the next 5 years. So from this you got an idea about two things, that how the what is the time span the client is looking into, and what is what is the number he is looking after. So these things get an idea. So next thing the student will do, he will write down the statement E P is equals to R minus C times M, the statement before analyzing. So now from this point the interviews will start involving the process the student is going through. So this framework he will start with this framework, and then he will move on to telling about the external factors, and then followed by telling about the market. So let's take a look on what the student told about the external factors. Please move on to the next slide. Okay. So the student told the interviewer about the economy, that I know the US is at a tail end of the recession. It is in the middle of mortgage crisis, and unemployment remains high. So people have less disposable income. Gas prices have topped $4 balloon. I know that the US dollar has gaining strength against the euro and pound, but is still fairly weak against Asian currencies, particularly the yen. And yeah, I know that the interest rates have fallen dramatically and are now close to 30-year low. So here the geographic location is America. Here I've considered the economy of America. So similarly, you can you can answer those external questions based on Indian economy. And what this did is this set up a platform for analyzing the case in the further and analyzing the case from a point, and it also opened you to more strategies as you can make as you have known that the dollar is running weak against the Asian country like yen. So these things will later on come as a part of strategy, and this set your premises over here. So next thing the interviewer asks what's next. So what next? At this point the interviewer expects the next clarifying question. So you have made your premises that how you are going to get into the problem. Next your part is to come up with a clarifying question. So the students ask, I want to know about the motorcycle industry, because nobody would be aware about the motorcycle industry because it's a case statement, and to get in general idea. And while you ask this question, the interviewer will automatically give you the information that that's important and that's trivial from the case point of view. So the interview told that about the last year how the last year industry has grown. And for example, let me read this. I have some industry information. Last year the industry grew by 5%.
No, I'll wait, no problem. I'll just
Sure.
read it like that is done in the actual case. So so when you would ask that what's been going on, the interviewer will already have some balance sheets or some past records. So from that he can say that I have some industry information. So last year the industry grew by 5%, Harley grew by 2%, and the small less expensive motorcycles and scooters grew by 8%. And female riders were up by 12% and now make up 10% of all the motorcycle riders. But these constitute only 2% of the Harley riders. Right. Yes, Karthik, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ashin. So here the question asking that I would like to know about the motorcycle industry is completely legit, because nobody expects you to know about motorcycle industry or any other industry in that case. So the interviewer has the information, a lot of information which he wants to give to you, which he wants to you to analyze. So after asking the question, you expect this kind of explanation which involve a lot of numbers. So at this point, you want to want to take notes about the numbers while he is at it, while he's speaking. You want to take and note down this important numbers that you can run through later and come up with the analysis. So, and most of the time they also give you some very non-relevant information. So it's up to you, and it comes with practice that what data you want to know, and it, about the data he has given. I think all of them is essential from a strategy point of view. Like you want to know about the percentage of female riders, so you can come up with a product which is female based. So these kind of things matter. So these questions are important. So you might want to note out those points and just take a second to jot down and take to know what is relevant from your strategy point of view. Moving on.
Right. So next, the interviewer also tells about the market share. Since in the previous part he mentioned that last year the industry grew by 5%. So now telling about the industry, uh, I want you to assume that each of these companies makes only one particular model, and for Harley it is only the big Harley hog. So that is the share that I was talking about. Uh, that share is occupied by only one particular model. And so yeah, so the market share that I have for you is so for Honda, the market leader is Honda with 27% market share. Harley occupies 24% market share. Yamaha 17%, Suzuki 10%, Kawasaki 8%, and BMW 6%. And the remaining 9% is made up of other two scooter companies, Vespa and Suzuki. Yeah, that's about it. What else would you like to know about the industry?
Okay, so here the interviewer has told you about the market share of Harley, and this gave you an idea of how the market split is there in the market. And now the student asked, it looks as though Harley is not growing as much as the industry overall. This might be because it has few female riders. So the student is starting to come up with a strategy. But it was too soon to come up with a strategy, so the interviewer interrupts. I know you are where you are headed. You are headed towards the strategy, but do you have any other industry questions? So this is your point to ask, more clarifying question. This is a sign you might want to ask more clarifying question before moving on to the strategies. So the student, moving on to the next slide. The interviewer follows up with the question: do you think that this is an Harley problem or an industry problem? So the student says that I think it's a Harley problem. So generally what happens whenever they give you a number, like the fact that industry grew by 5%, so the industry grew by 5% isn't a sufficient sign the industry is performing well, because you want to ask for the trends, because you are saying that in the industry grew by 5%, but suppose it grew about 10% in the last year and the year before. So even about the market, you want to know about the trends, because maybe it's growing, but it could be still declining, and the market could not be performing well. So if you want to know about the industry, you should also ask for the trends. So that's what here interviewer was prompting the student to ask about, and they want to know how you think, means how in depth, how comprehensive, and how articulated is your way. That's what the interviewer wants to look at. They want to judge you on the basis of your performance. So that's why they have asked, do you have any industry problem? So yes, we want to know about the industry problem, so we should be asking about the trends. So now following on what next. So onto our framework, we have already looked at the external factors. Now we should want to know about the company's factors. So it would give you a better insight. So Ashwin, please.
Right, so I'm going to give the four major revenue streams for year one and year two. And the four major revenue streams are domestic motorcycle sales, international sales, replacement parts, and GAB.
So here the interviewer, the students ask what are the revenue streams to know about the split of their revenue, and asking about the revenue streams is really important, or asking about the revenue trends are really important. These are the basic questions that the interviewer expects out of you. And if there is something comes up that's a technological or a business jargon that you're not aware about, so it's completely okay to ask what does that term mean. So here GAB means merchandise. So he asked about GAB, and then later on the interviewer tells about the the percentages of for year one and for year two, what are the percentage, what is the revenue split of all these four categories. So as
Yes,
you can
next
see in the
slide,
graphs,
please.
yeah, please
Yes,
move
so
forward.
GAB is merchandise. For year one, domestic motorcycles made up 45%, international 40%, replacement parts 10%, and merchandise 5%. And for year two, this particular split was 35, 40, 15, and 10. So I'd like you to look at these numbers and how they've been changing over the last year. And in four or fewer sentences, tell me what is the reason for this, what's going on with the customers.
Okay, so the student here, as you can, the student made a note about how what are the revenue streams and what are their percentage contribution. So here she, while doing so, while noting down the graph in her notes, she made the point, it looks as if Harley customers are buying fewer new bikes, fixing up their old bikes, and buying some garb to make themselves feel good. So she commented about this, about the fraction and the percentages. So this at this point you can make an interaction with the interviewer. So she added a little humor while showing that while she was noting down these points, this thinking in the direction of strategy only. So that leaves a really good impression about the interviewer and the way you are going through it. So while you are making notes and looking at the things, you should always at the back of the head you should be running numbers, and you should be analyzing, and you should be thinking in many possible ways you can come up with a strategy. Moving on.
Right. Next, we would like to talk about costs.
About cost. So let the interviewer, that's what interviews generally do before. So you're just following a pattern, you're following a framework, you're following through this a particular way. The interviewer, the interviewer wants to check you that you are flexible with dealing questions at different points of the time, or you have this made up method in your mind that you are going through. So they might ask you a question out of the blue that, okay, let's talk about the cost. You haven't been thinking about the cost because you've been taking points on the revenue. So they have asked about the cost. So you can at this point you have to switch to the cost part in some seconds. Like this friend says, before we can do, can I ask about the volume? Do we have any number or volume of bikes sold? So
Yes, we have. We have these numbers. So Harley sold 350,000 bikes in year one and 330,000 in year two.
following days, the student makes notes about what are the Harley sold for year one and sales for year one and for year two. Then she asked about the cost. Then as the interviewer asks you about the cost, you should be moving on to the cost-based clarifying question in a second, like what are the major costs, both fixed and variable, and how have they changed over time. So this is the question the student asked interviewer.
Right. So when we talk about costs, the only cost you need to worry about is the cost of steel. So we are in the middle of a steel contract that expires in 24 months. We currently have a good deal, but we are concerned about getting slammed with high steel costs in 24 months as the economy improves. So I just want you to remember that, keep that in the back of your mind. So what I'd like you to do now is to come up with some short-term strategies that would help turn Harley around. And
Okay.
by short-term, I mean 18 months or less.
Okay, so here the interviewer has given you a lot of information about the cost they are worrying about is of steel cost, and that they contracted expiring in 20 months. So they want to right now focus on short-term strategies. So the strategies you should be looking, they define the promises of their problem in this statement, and uh, they wanted to increase the profit, and you should keep this in mind that they want to increase the profits while maintaining the market share as currently Harley have. So this was a really good move from student side while switching on the cost-based solution. You might want to feel like saying that I will just suggest the revenue-based solution, then I'll come to cost-based solution, but that's not what the interviewer is expecting of you. You should you should just jump on right to the cost-based question and analyze this cost-based strategies. Moving on, now you can move on to the studies because you have all the data, you have everything. Now you can take a second to the things and jot down some ideas about how you are going to with the strategies. As we have discussed that you have to break down the strategies based on the revenue based and the cost based structure. So uh, uh, the student breaks down this in the basis of how we can rise the price as the garb is about the Harley can raise the price of its garb and replacement parts because we know people can buy them anyway. So this is a really good part, really good from her side. We can also increase international distribution channels because the international sales was low, as you can see the numbers in the previous slide. The international sales was low as compared to domestic sales. So she was suggesting that we can increase the international sales. How we can do so by by increasing the distribution channels. That's one way. And what prices can we improve? She suggested that the price of garb, the accessories we can improve. So let us analyze what she did there. By writing revenue based strategies on your paper, you are showing the interviewer that you are well organized and thinking 2 steps ahead. It is easier to think of some ideas if you are looking at the heading on the piece of paper rather than a blank page. It also keeps you from ping ponging back and forth between revenue based and cost based strategies. So she, while explaining everything, she was showing this whole analysis and whatever she is being suggested on the paper to the interviewer, and the interviewer was following her throughout the process while she was at it. So next, the interviewer asked where you are planning to increase the distribution channel. So she suggests in Asia, where the dollar is still weak. So that's what she has suggested as a strategy after this. Moving on. Okay, so the interviewer is okay with the strategy and he asks what else. So now he wants to ask you, he wants to get an idea of more strategies that you can suggest. So as she mentioned while explaining the economic condition of her country, that interest rates were low. Now she is using that point to make her strategy that because interest rates are so low, we can offer financing packages and give high trade-in values to encourage customer to buy new bikes. So that is a really good statement from interview's point of view. She suggested at the beginning of the case, and now she is using it to suggest strategies. And next, moving on, she also suggested a cost based solution that we can consider laying off people. You said the volume dropped from 3,000 uh, uh, 3 350,000 bikes to 330,000 bikes, and that's about 5% drop. So she was suggesting that the laying of people can be a solution. Now the interviewer asked, we are considering changing prices. So he wants her to run some data, and then she can suggest new strategies based out of the data. Interview, please.
Right. So yeah, we are considering changing prices, like you said, and I have some data. So run the numbers and then tell me what you want to do and why. Right. So if we leave the price same, Harley will sell 330,000 motorcycles and make a profit of $10,000 each. And if we discount the price, then Harley will sell 440,000 motorcycles, which means that it will sell more motorcycles, but the net profit would be less by $3,000. So the net profit would be $7,000. And if we raise the price, then we'll be able to sell less motorcycles naturally, and that is 275,000 motorcycles. But since now we've raised the price, the profit would be more. That is $12,000. So tell me if we raise the price or leave it as it is, whatever. So tell me how we should go about it. If we raise the price or leave it alone, we'll make the same net profit. You might want to remember this when you make the analysis.
So she just quickly ran down number and she multiplied the volume with the price, and she said that if we keep the price same, then our net profit will be 3.3 billion, and if we lower the price, our net profit will be around 3.08 billion, and if we raise the price, net profit will be around 3.3 billion. So raising the price and keeping the same price, the net profit is almost same.
So out of the interviewer has given you data on purpose only that the value are coming to be same. So now the next question they ask, if we raise the price or leave it alone, we'll make the same net profit. So what do you want to do and why? So here the other objective comes into play, and she suggests, I would like to keep the price same. You said market share was a key objective, and if we raise the price, we are going to sell 55,000 fewer bikes. That means our net market share will be affected, and around by a 5% drop. So and that's why she said that we should keep the price same, and go on with the first method. So that's what she suggested, and after she suggested one long term strategies also following this, that we can have these the extra bikes in our inventory, and we can later on sell them. So about the analysis, the student took some time here to solve the numbers and come up with a solution, right answer. And before speaking anything, she made a thought about what to do. What happens generally in interview, we rush upon to the strategy before analyzing them in our head. So it's better to take some more time and coming up with the right strategy, rather than mixing numbers and suggesting wrong strategy that leaves a very really bad impression on interview. So next, moving on, the next interviewer asks, Ashin.
Right. Yeah. So the strategy that you suggested is a bit wrong. Why? Because if we raise the price, we'll have lower labor costs. So you need to factor in the costs as well. So we'll have to lower labor costs if we raise the price, because we will be able to lay people off. And in addition, the higher price will enhance the brand. So as far as the other concerns go, you told me that you plan to increase international distribution channels where the dollar is still weak, say Asia. So if we do that, any extra inventory can be shipped overseas and sold at the higher price, the new price. And GARB sales tend to be higher when you enter a new territory. So market share shouldn't be an issue. And apart from that, how do you measure market share? Is it the number of units sold or the total revenues?
So here, what the interviewer is asking you, so they are suggesting that how your strategy is not going to work, and they just want to test that whether you will stick to your strategy, and you will be moved out whatever they are going to say. So a lot of times, what happens is the strategy or the other way they are suggesting doesn't make sense, and it is not viable through one or the other way. So at this point, you'll want to take a second to analyze what they have said. You should always in the back of the head, while this at it they're saying it, you should analyze what they're saying, and then you have to come up with, is that strategy better than yours, and is the problem they're suggesting is really there. And if you are really sure that they're just confusing you, then you can always stick to your solution. Like, you make an interesting argument, however I don't find it compelling enough. I can't believe that you can do that all within the 8 month period, because that's not really possible. And a lot of times that you might have missed something, and they're suggesting something the really viable and possible. In that case, it's okay to say that, yeah, I missed that point, I would like to incorporate, and then modifying your strategy based on that. So you can always take a time to make a couple of notes and coming up with a strategy. And always you should keep in check your emotion and confidence while doing so. So now the interviewer moves on to long term strategies, and he asked, give me two long term revenue based ideas and two long term cost based ideas. So now the moving on to the next slide, Tanmay. Yeah. So the student suggests, on the revenue based side, the first thing I would do is come up with a new bike that is geared not only towards women but also to younger men. Because as you remember, the market share, the segmentation split of the product was really low for the women part, and the majorly constituted of the men from higher age. So this will give us something beside GARB to market to women. I would also look to see if we can acquire a scooter company. We couldn't put the Harvey name out, name on it, but we could take advantage of the fastest growing segment. So like we can acquire some other company which has a good market share, and we can, you know, use that to acquire market, and in long term that will help in improving our profits. So these are some of sort of strategy that you can suggest. And about the cost, you can suggest we could stockpile some steel at the current price, because we are developing a new bike. We can make more parts from composites instead of steel. We could modernize the plant. So here you can be more creative about the product and everything. So here they're asking about the long-term strategies. You can be creative in terms of product. You can be creative in terms of the company's finances. Like you can tell them that we can restructure our dating system, and we can offer finance based plans and trade-off plans to foreign countries. And we can also offer low market price on the in terms of exchange of bikes. So these strategies you can suggest here. So at this point, the interviewer will ask you to summarize everything. The summary should be small, and the summary should be crisp. So as you can read the summarization, the student suggests a client is Harley Davidson. Stock price dropped around 10% on the news of declining profit. We looked at external factors first and determined it was more of a Harley's problem rather than the industry problem. About in how do you know it's not an industry problem? You ask for trends, and on the basis of trends you come up with whether it's an industry problem or it's a Harley problem. Harley's out of step with two fast growing segments of the industry, women and scooters. So you suggested the strategies based on them. So we can come up with some short term strategies and long term strategies on both the revenue and cost sides. An example of a short-term strategy, revenue-based strategies offering low financing to customers. On the cost side, we could refinance our debt. In the long term, we could produce a new bike geared towards women and younger men and acquire a scooter maker. Also on the cost side, we could hedge steel prices because right now the prices are running low, and have certain new parts made out of the composite instead of steel. If Harley follows these strategies as well as some other we talked about, it should be on its way to high profit in 24 to 36 months. So you should be absolute with what you said, that if the strategies that you have come up with, if Harley follows, then the profit will increase. There won't be any might, they will increase. So you should be absolute with the analysis. So the after summarizing that, she came on very strong at the end, and the turning point was when she defended her decision to keep the price the same. So that was an important point when she ran the numbers and find out that the by increasing the price and by keeping the price same, the profits are same, and the other objective is maintaining the market share. So at that point she brought up the point about the market share. So that was a really compelling point, and that gave interviewer the idea of how she thinks and really helped the process through. So this is about summarizing in conclusion. I hope it gave you a good idea of how to deal with a real case interview, how it works, and about most of lot of you must be thinking how to come up with a strategy. So about strategy, once you do 3 or 4 profit loss or market entry or other sort of cases, you'll get a good idea how to come up with strategies. And the strategy part isn't difficult, and it's not the focus of the problem here. The focus is going through a process and going through a planned way to solve the problem. So now let's take up questions, and if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask. We can discuss about this case.
Karthik Bhaiya, there are some questions in the chat box also.
Yeah, just a second. I have a doubt that can share problem be fixed without keeping the profitability in mind? The problem of share can be fixed by without keeping the profitability in mind if profitability is not a concern. If you ask the interviewer whether profitability is another objective and he says no, it's not an objective, then you can tackle the share problems without keeping in mind the profitability. So it depends upon what constitutes success, and that is why you should ask this to the interviewer, and that is important.
So
Next, should it be
this particular share problem can be solved from other aspects also. So it's not really. So I think Karthik rightly said that success is more important. Is success profit? then if success is profit, then we need to go with the profitability case or similar cases. But in general, it totally depends on what the success is as defined by the interviewer.
Okay, so next we should be focus on the price range Harley operates in rather than focusing on entire industry. So actually, the idea of industry will give you give you idea of whether the price range of Harley is right or not. So without observing the industry, cannot say if cannot comment on Harley's price range. Suppose if Harley is really overpricing their product, then there isn't even a point of discussing the profit, because there won't be any profit if they're overpricing it and they don't have market share. For example, Apple is overpricing their products because they have a good market share, and they have a good market value. Suppose, for example, for a company like Nokia, who have no market share, suddenly start overpricing their product. So in that case, there won't be any profit because they don't own the market share. So you have, while analyzing the company's profit or market share, first you have to take a look at the industry.